Hey, it's raw to the bone. Welcome to my channel. That's the first thing I want to say. I thank you for tuning in. Make sure you're hitting subscribe to my channel so that you'll get all the alerts when I have an updated story. Well, today I'm hopping on YouTube because it's been a while, number one. And number two, I wanted to start telling my stories again. I did take a break from telling my stories because with the pandemic, it was enough sadness going on. And then we had the George Floyd incident, which is just another incident for us to focus on and hope to march towards making better change. So with all of that, I still want to get back to some normalcy. And normalcy is hopping back on YouTube and telling my story. There was a story that I posted a cover for. A lot of my stories I'll post a cover for and put it out there, but I'm not necessarily ready to upload the story to YouTube. And there was this one particular story called Touch. And I was standing there, and you'll see it because it'll be a part of this video stream. I was standing there in front of a tank. It was in the aquarium, and a shark was passing by. And before thinking about telling this story, I didn't even think of that picture. I didn't take that picture for this story, but the picture seemed so accurate to the story because what I was essentially doing was standing there behind what I thought was my shield of protection as this predator swam by. So that leads me to my story, Touch. I posted that picture and I posted a synopsis that talked about some touch is not the touch that we expect, right? It's not always that loving touch. And this particular time, this was not a loving touch. The year was 1978. I want to say I was 12 years old, 11 years old. I'm sorry. I was 11 years old. My brother wasn't even 1 year old yet. And my mom, as I've told in several other stories, my mom was a jack of all trades, okay? So she worked a full-time job. She ran numbers at night. She worked at the laundromat, whatever she needed to do to keep food on our table. So a lot of times I was one of those latchkey kids, one of those children that wore a key around her neck, came home from school, was responsible, and oftentimes looked after my little brother. This particular night, it was in Queens. Again, the year was 1978. I want to say it was a summer evening, and my mother wasn't home. This particular night, she was out doing her night job, which was running numbers, and she was in the neighborhood where we lived, and I was always told to lock the door behind her. And in these particular days, we used to use that crowbar, that bar thing that leaned on the door so no one can get in and bust the door down, you know what I mean? So, we locked the door. It was the locks that the landlord put on the door, and then there was the extra locks your parents put on the door. So my mother would put all these extra locks, and then we had that kick bar, whatever you called it, on the door. So why would we have anything to worry about? We felt perfectly safe being home a couple of hours as my mother ran out to take care of a couple of her customers or clients, as you want to call them. This particular night, I was sleeping in the bed, in my mother's bed. My brother and I were both sleeping in the bed. That's where we slept when she was not home. And I remember tossing and turning because I felt like a presence in the room. It was like it was a feeling. You guys know what I'm talking about when you get this feeling that someone is watching you or someone is standing in the room with you. Well, this was that particular moment, and I was afraid to open my eyes. But something said, open your eyes, Robin. But in the time that I said open my eyes, I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be a dream. I'm going to open my eyes and not a damn person is going to be standing there. Well, to my surprise, I opened my eyes and there was someone sitting there. There was a gentleman sitting on the edge of the bed, and it was dark, and there was the only light that was on was the light in the living room. Our apartment was railroad type, so when you came through our front door, to the immediate left was my bedroom. Then, when you came into the front door, that was the living room. To your right was my mother's bedroom, and then further to your right was the kitchen. Right? So we were sleeping in my mother's bedroom, which is between the living room and the kitchen. So the light from the living room was shining in, so I can see the shape of the person. I can see that the person was wearing a hat, a big rim hat. I can make out the image of the person enough to know who that person was, okay? In that moment, I froze. You know, it's funny because before any of these things happen to us, the first thing we say is, oh, if this happens, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Well, I'm sure at that age, talking to my friends, I said I was going to do a lot of things if somebody did something to me. But that particular night, I froze. I was frozen in a state of fear, not only for myself, but remember, guys, I had my little brother in the bed, and I didn't know if any reaction from me would bring harm to me and my brother as well. So I was frozen in a state of fear. Okay? And I remember the gentleman started to talk to me, like to try to soothe me. He tried to calm my fear. And with each word, my fear continued to grow. Okay? Because it felt like a silence before a storm. It felt like this was a calm moment before something very tragic was about to happen. So I was still frozen in fear, and his words kept coming. And at one point, not only did his words start coming, but I felt a touch. This is the touch that I'm talking about. This is the touch that you never want to experience in your life. And this is the touch that you never want your children to experience, because it's a touch that will forever remain with you. And it's not going to be one that brings you a smile, okay? It's going to be one that's going to remind you of a period in your life where there was pain, okay? But we have to heal from it. So this is why I started Raw to the Bone, my storytelling journey, so that I can heal past these things and I can talk about these things that I never really talked about with many people. Okay, so here I am, because I know that I'm not the only one that experienced things such as this, such as that touch, that unforbidden touch. That's what I'm calling it, okay? And so his words began to meet his touch. And that's when I started to hear the sound of my heartbeat, because I knew at that point what was coming wasn't going to be good. I remember shutting my eyes really tight and saying, please stop. Okay, I must have said it at least twice. I vaguely remember, but I know I said it more than once. At this particular time, his hand was inside of my underwear, not inside of my private parts. Thank goodness. It was just inside of my underwear, and he was massaging my rear end. Okay. And something, I don't know what it was, something told him, if I offer her money, maybe she'll do this quietly. He took money out, and I vaguely remember $5. I don't know if it was a $5 bill mixed with other monies, but I do remember seeing a $5 bill. And he put this money, my mother had this headboard that had like little shelving in it, so you could put like envelopes or whatever in it. And he put this money on a headboard, and he told me to be quiet. Like to, of course he didn't want to wake my brother up at this point. But then I realized I had an advantage. He didn't want to wake my brother up. So I felt like there was a chance for me to get away, okay? I don't know exactly what happened between the time I shut my eyes really, really tightly until the time I opened my eyes, thinking that I was about to experience the worst thing in my entire life. But he stopped. And he said he had to go. And what was strange about it is that the whole time he was saying he had to go, I was thinking, how did he get inside of our house? We had all the locks. The kick bar was on the door. And I'm thinking to myself, how did this, even with a key, you couldn't get in. Even my own mom would have had to call me. Well, I would have had to knock on the door to wake me up to open the door. I say call, but we didn't have cell phones and stuff back then, right? But she would have had to knock on the door to wake me up for me to let her in. When he said he had to go, he asked me to let him out. And I'm thinking, why does he need me to let him out? But Lord knows I was grateful that he was leaving, okay? And I was still in my pure form, if you know what I mean, okay? So when he stood up from the bed, I proceeded to get out of the bed to follow him into the living room to let him out. To my surprise, I get to the living room. All the locks are still locked. The bar is on the door. Everything is there. And I'm thinking, how did he get in this house? I unlocked all the locks, took the bar off the door, let him out. And when the door closed, I immediately picked up the landline and called the bar. I believe it was the bar that my mother was working in. I knew where she was. So I was able to reach her. That part is very vague to me. But she flew home, and she came home with a gentleman friend of hers, and she knocked on the door, and I opened the door, and she and her gentleman friend was standing there, and she asked me what happened, and I was able to tell her every single thing that happened, and I was even able to tell her who it was, because when he got up off the bed to walk me to the living room to let him out, we were no longer in darkness, right? We were in the light, so I was able to see him. So how brave was he to do something like that, knowing that I would see his face? Okay, so when my mother came into the house and she asked me what happened, I gave her exactly what happened from the beginning of the time that I felt there was someone in the room until the end when I let him out of the house, okay? As I'm talking to my mother, her male friend was looking around the house. They discovered that the window in our kitchen was raised and the kitchen table was pushed away from the window. So this man knew that my mother was not home, okay? And he knew, because he was familiar with us, we knew who he was. I knew who he was, right? He knew that how we locked our doors, so he knew that there was no chance he was going to be able to get through in the front door. So this was someone that knew us, that climbed through the window and proceeded to molest me. And who knows? He could have raped me. If it wasn't for my brother being in the bed, anything could have happened. Maybe they didn't expect my little brother to be in the bed. Maybe they didn't expect me to be in the same bed with my brother, because my room was at the front of the house, okay? So maybe he thought my brother was going to be in the crib and I was going to be in my room at the front of the house. But whatever it is, God saved me that day, okay? And my mother proceeded to press charges on this family. And this family was well known at the time. A well-known family, okay? I said Queens, 1978. This was a well-known family. And this family proceeded to threaten the safety of my family, of my mother, of myself. And so out of fear, the charges were dropped. And not only were the charges dropped out of fear, but the attorney, for whatever reason, they tried to deter us from taking it to court, because they kept saying they're going to drill the child. They're going to make the child feel like it's her fault. They're going to this, they're going to that. And they got into all this stuff. And then more importantly, why was the child home at that time of night alone? So it could have been a risk that I could have been removed from the home, right? Too much going on. The charges were dropped. I didn't understand as a child. I was very upset. I was very angry. And I held on to that anger for many, 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 many years. Okay? But I'm here to say, this is one of those stories that a lot of people don't talk about. Okay? And there are a lot of secrets, family secrets that's kept, especially when there's a family member okay, in your family who is a molester, we keep it a secret. Well, I say we, I don't know anybody in my family that's a molester that I've kept a secret, because I probably would tell, because that's how I am. I'm not going for the bullshit. Don't touch the kids kind of thing. Keep yourself to yourself. Okay? So, I'm not out here alone with this story. So again, I created Raw to the Bone, the storytelling journey, to get on here and share my life stories on YouTube, so that other people that might have had the same experiences can identify with what's going on, and maybe they can take away some information that I've shared to help them on a road to their self-therapy, right? Their healing, because that's the road I'm on. I'm on that healing road. I'm on that self-therapy path. And not only do I do the stories on YouTube, but I also host a Coffee with Friends Monday through Friday on my Facebook page, right? At 8 a.m. in the morning. And we talk about topics that people care about, all right? And they're not just topics that I contribute, but they're topics that they contribute as well. All right? People are invested. People want to know things. People want to heal past things. People are still trying to understand things. And this story, Touch, I posted that cover almost 3 months ago, if not 3 months. It could be about 3 months ago. I said almost, but it could be about 3 months ago, because this was one of those stories that, I struggled with telling. Okay, this gentleman never did a day in jail for what he's done. He's never gotten a strike on his record for what he's done. He got away with it. Okay, like many, many, many other people in these situations, the victims, the people, the predators that preyed on them get away with these kind of crimes, right? And then we grow up sometimes not knowing what touch is a good touch versus a bad touch. And that's where the therapy comes in, right? Okay, because I certainly believe that what happens to us in our younger lives and even in our older lives, experiences can change us, okay? And it can make us see things one-sided. But it's not always the case. And that's why I say, tell your stories. Share your stories. If you're having a difficult time sharing your stories, find other people like me who get on YouTube or other platforms and tell their stories, so that you can hold on to something, so that you have something that you can reference, and that you know that you're not alone. Okay? And that's what my channel is about. So I hope that this is not one of those stories that I can say I hope you enjoyed, but I hope you take this story, this testimony, as a guide. Okay? It might not even be you, it might be somebody you know, right? Take it as a guide, but make sure you're subscribing to my YouTube channel, so that any new stories that I upload, you will definitely get an alert. So make sure you subscribe. You should see the subscribe up top. And make sure you're following me on IG, Raw to the Bone, and Facebook, Raw to the Bone. I am Raw to the Bone across all platforms. So if you're looking for me, just look for me, RAW, the number 2, TH33 BONE, across all platforms. And make sure you peek in and join us for Coffee with Friends, Monday through Friday, Facebook Live at 8 a.m. Okay? Gone for now, but not gone forever. Raw to the Bone.